So Jules and I went to Charing Cross to see the endocrinologist because I was on hormones. I've been on them for about 3 or 4 years. So we went to the Charing Cross, the gender clinic. We went and sat in the waiting room, and this is one of the reasons I don't really have a great deal to do with trans people. So we sit in the waiting room, and there's 2 trans women sitting opposite. The first conversation starter was, "Are you having your cock chopped off? When? How? Why?" And I was like, one, that's personal. Entirely up to me what I'm going to do. Secondly, my genitalia does not define me as a person.
Yes.
No, exactly.
So what point are you trying to make by justifying your position with when are you having surgery to justify whether I feel as a male or female? Because my genitalia physically has nothing to do with it's a sex organ at the end of the day. Whether I like it being there or I don't like it being there is immaterial to how I feel individually.
I had this conversation with somebody where when one of my friends was transitioning, they was like, well, what are they gay or are they straight? I said, well, now they're going to end up being gay because this is male to female and they like women. And it was, well, what's the point then? Was what they say. I said, what's the point? Well, what's the point of them having a sex change if they're still going to like women anyway? Because then they're chopping off their penises, so then they won't be able to have sex. And I was literally, do you really think on that level? Because they still think of themselves as a woman.
That's the thing.
You know?
It all boils down to, a lot of it boils down to whether you have male genitalia or female.
But this person was a feminist and said this.
Because you're a person at the end of the day. Your brain is wired in a certain way. You feel how you feel as an individual. Your genitalia has nothing to do with your gender recognition.
Don't you think that's a lot of that's down to stereotypes though by cis men?
Of course.
I think about sex every 6 seconds. Do you remember that crap? We used to get that all the time. I think about women. They're just walking vagina. Men have made themselves the sum total of their genitals, and they've done it to us. So
it stems from that white male.
Yeah.
Well, not just white male, because black.
It's reductionist. It's reducing everything to genitalia. It's not at all.
And nothing is about genitalia. I go back to this where we gradually went into a trans support group to try and give some advice, which probably I'm the worst person to give advice to any trans person. But I went in and I went, you know what? If you're not happy with you, don't do anything, because ultimately cutting bits of your anatomy off is not going to make you feel better.
Going back to
but I have to confess.
Can I say? Okay. Sorry, go on. You say.
I was going to say I have to confess that my friend who was transitioning, and I felt they were transitioning because they were failing as a male. Like they couldn't get women. Men didn't respect them. They couldn't get the work. They were seen as an inferior beta male by other men as well. That it was almost like, oh, I'll do better as a woman, and I was. Patronisingly, and I fully admit I was in the wrong. I apologised to this person later, I want to say that, and more than once, and I felt they were making the biggest mistake of their lives because transitioning, because I felt that they were looking at they were fixating on transitioning to fix all the problems in their life, and that actually they were going to face more discrimination as a trans woman, and it was going to make things worse for them. And I did it out of an ill-conceived care. I admit, because I think they're happier now. I can't speak for them, but I think they are happier now.
Well, I mean, I think ultimately,
and I was wrong.
But ultimately, I had to make that decision on which is the lesser of the two evils. How are you going to be happier in life? Are you going to be happier in life living as female, not being female, but living as female, waking up every day wishing you were born female, to live like that, and I can take hormones I haven't been on hormones for nearly 10 years now, so I've been off them longer than I was ever on them, but they have an effect, Julia, regardless of how you think that happens.
It matters when you're doing sports, yes.
No, it doesn't. No, it has a profound effect on your body and on your psyche. Regardless of that, you have to then decide: are you happy enough in yourself to make that choice?
That's the question.
Because if you're not happy with the decision, which is completely turn your life upside down, transition.
What do you think of the TERF argument that there are a large number of trans people who actually regret making their decision and they're not allowed to speak? They're sort of kept quiet because it doesn't fit in with the woke media.
There are a huge number of people
There's
that
lots.
regret the transition.
Do you think so?
Lots, yes.
Sometimes, even today, I could turn around and regret.
Not disagree. We're on the same page about the whole. You know, if you want to keep your genitalia, keep it. It's not about. We shouldn't reduce people down to their genitalia. It depends the context, though. If there's the context of competitive sports, then this is where there is an argument that obviously a man born with all the testosterone and 6'4", there was a situation, wasn't there, in America, where the swimmer he wiped the floor.
Yeah.
He wiped the floor of his female peers, and he went into the changing room. He was all intact. I don't even think he was on hormones, and obviously he wiped the floor of them. He broke the world record. There's common sense, obviously.
No, I get the argument. I've heard this argument about male athletes who are quite mediocre, and then they've transitioned to female, and now they're winning all the gold medals to the detriment of cis women who struggle as it is in sports to get things like equal pay. I get that. And is it unfair on cis women? Yes, it is. And I don't think we can deny that. But we are talking about something extremely specialised and exceptional to the rule. I think that's one of those cases where it is exceptional, and possibly there does need to be a separate category for trans people. I'm not saying they should be bunged in with men.
No.
But maybe they should have a separate category. I don't know. I'd like to hear Sel's view on this. But the argument against that is, are there enough trans athletes to justify to have a separate category? In which case, if there aren't, what can we do? The answer is I don't know. I don't know what the answer is.
But these are common sense questions that we need to talk and speak about.
But again, I'm hesitant to do that because the TERFs and the anti-trans brigade will jump all over that. I'm not saying there should never be any debate. I mean, we're all sitting around debating now, but you've got to be very careful about what you're advocating, for whom you're advocating, and against what you're advocating. That's what I'm saying. You might be for a certain group like women, you might be for a group like lesbians, but when you're against another sector of society that's been kept down, you're damaging, and you're creating what I have coined as intersectional sexism, pretentious as though that probably sounds, where it's traditionally sort of oppressed sectors of society too busy quarrelling amongst themselves and hitting down on each other rather than attacking the common enemy here.
No, I understand. So you're right, actually. I think what we need to think about is whether there's enough trans people to have a separate category. I think, though, is that something that the powers that be will...
It's a bit like Cartman and his trans bathroom, if you remember, in South Park. I love South Park. They have a simplicity. We sit here talking about this for 3 hours. They just, come in and do Erica with a bow in his hair. I
don't remember that one.
So we were just talking about athletes, trans athletes in women's categories.
This is something I don't really agree with.
See, I've just said I find this quite difficult, and because it is a detriment it is causing a detriment to female athletes. Because the problem is you're looking at you're looking at people who are at
male
the peak,
physiques
at their peak, and female at their peak. And there is a difference.
Of course there is.
I don't think anybody can deny that. There is a difference. I don't think on a general whole there is a great deal of difference actually between men and women, but you're talking about select creme de la creme, less than 1%, there's going to be a difference.
I think if you want to have sporting equivalence, then let's have male events, female events, and then mixed.
I said that. That's what we said. Well, I said about possibly having a trans category, but would there be enough trans athletes to...
Probably not.
Probably not at the moment. I think
in future
there will be. But at the moment there
I
isn't.
think it would be quite interesting.
Why not have?
Can you imagine the far righters with that?
Or why not have an LGBTQ category?
Yeah.
Because the lesbians won't like it. They want a safe space, don't forget.
True.
In case they pull a trans woman in the changing rooms.
No, we'll have to have a whole...
Yeah, we'll have to have a whole different trans.
It will be held in Lesbos. We'll have
LeBeau.
We'll have a store.
So I did South Park again.
But no, I think fundamentally, if you are born male, then you have physical advantage if it comes to top performing sports.
Because again, it does depend when you transitioned, doesn't it? Yeah.
I mean, if you transition, you were put on hormone blockers and you were before puberty to stop puberty happening, and You wouldn't develop the muscle mass that a male had, but you'd still have the bone density.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
again, physically, I don't necessarily agree with it, and I'm sure a load of trans people will scream and shout at me and try and shoot me for it, but again, let's be realistic.
Yeah.
So for me to compete against, I mean, you know, in tennis, for instance, Jules would whip me.
Yeah.
But again, it's because I don't play tennis.
I think
if
so.
I trained from a young age at the same sport, we'll take tennis for example. If I trained from a young age as a male to play tennis, to aim for the top echelons of tennis, and a girl was trained at the same level, it was purely cis, and you got to the point where you were playing professionally at the same level, you put the male against the female, the male is going to hit harder because of mass.
Well, there was Billie Jean King with Ron, somebody, I can't remember his name. He was a retired tennis player, wasn't he? There's a documentary on this, and he challenged the top female tennis players to play him and said he would beat every single one of them.
Yeah, no.
And he beat Chris Evert. Was it Chris Evert?
I think so.
Then he challenged Billie Jean King and she beat him.
Right.
But
And
what I'm
Martina
saying-
Navratilova always practiced with men. She was always one to say
because
she
she's
beat men all the
powerful.
time, but
Yeah.
she could never play professionally against them unless it was in doubles. So, you know,
Andy Murray, you know, he was the first male athlete to have a female coach, and the amount of stick he got.
No, I'm trying to generalise here because I don't want to go into it because I don't have statistics to hand. But physically, generally, men are built more robustly. They have
men have greater upper body strength.
but greater.
Most of our Olympic sports are top-heavy, upper body strength-based sports. So men will excel.
If you put somebody like Usain Bolt against the top at their peak,
like
absolute
Jennifer
peak,
Ennis, yes,
because of build, because of power, because of bone density, muscle mass, etc., etc. The male tends to outcompete the female, and so when you turn around to me and say, let's put a trans person who has only been on hormones for the last 5 years but has been training as a male for the last 20 against a female that's been training all her life with testosterone, then
maybe
it's
that's
not.
the answer. We just give all female athletes testosterone.
There's no
even the playing field.
Testosterone.
Yeah.
There's no even playing field. But then if you want to even that out, then put a trans man against a trans woman.
Yeah.
That's true. I agree with that.
Put a trans man against a trans woman. But they have to have stipulations about how many years they've been on hormone treatment. You probably have an unequal playing field because the estrogen that the trans women are taking against the testosterone that the trans men are taking.
Yeah.
But again, you have to go back to bone density, muscle mass.
One of my other friends who's trans has said that you can't reverse that.
No.
Caitlyn Jenner even agreed. You know, that she was brilliant when I heard her speak. She said, you know, would you go and play golf competitively with your female peers? She said, I love my friends. She said, I am 650 years born male with male muscles, male this, male that.
Yeah.
I'm going to wipe the floor of these girls. I'm not going to do this.
So
to
do
my
you
female.
think the
But
trans
she
woman...
came out, Caitlyn Jenner, you know, very honestly, publicly on the media said this, and I think, wow, that is what we want.
But there are fundamental-
we want realism.
But do you think then that this trans female athlete who is continuing to participate in women's events is misogynist then?
Well, that's what this.
I don't necessarily.
think
No,
so?
I don't.
Do you think
so.
she is personally being misogynist?
I don't think she's personally being misogynist. What I think is she's been pushed into this. You go and compete as female because you're allowed to, technically under the rules.
Yeah.
And I think the rules should be changed. As a trans person, I think. The
Well,
rules
is
should be
she
changed.
campaigning though to change the rules? I
No.
haven't seen
No.
her
I don't
think
campaigning.
she
I don't think she is.
She is.
But again,
So is her own individual gain and her
She's
own career
gaining.
more important
yeah,
than the good
but
of
then,
women?
Is
then,
is that
but then,
narcissism?
but then,
Is that entitlement?
then that's it's me.
Yeah.
It's about me.
Yeah.
It's about me. Don't worry about everybody else, or the rest of my female colleagues or my
Yeah.
trans colleagues.
But they're anti-feminist women anyway.
Exactly.
So it's an
So-
anti-feminist trans.
It's still an
Yeah.
anti-feminist trans woman because
Right.
she can then compete at the top level
Yeah.
as a trans woman
Yeah.
against natal females and go,
Yeah.
look at me, I'm
So
the
what
best."
I essentially don't agree. We can put
Caitlyn
tags
Jenner-
and labels on everything, but what I essentially don't agree with is one sector of society who's traditionally been, shall we say, oppressed, for want of a better word, punching down on another equally oppressed sector of society.
And
That to me is wrong. It's like I said, my gay friend who constantly goes on at fat women and trans women. I mean, he's misogynist as hell. And he thinks it's funny, and to me, I don't think it's funny, because it's perpetuating this, and what he's actually doing is sucking up to people who really are his enemy.
Yeah.
And he's trying to ingratiate himself with those who have traditionally discriminated against him.
That's a predominantly male trait as well, that it's this sucking up to be accepted.
Well, there are lots of women who do that too.
Probably, yeah, and quite.
By the way,
quite
Julia
true.
is whistling at the cocks. Oh no, she's whistling at the dog.
No, I'm trying to control nature.
Good luck
Lola's
with that.
trying to oppress your cocks.
I know.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
I think that's part of
Chaos
what we're
going
discussing,
on.
just
Yeah.
trying to control
Women
nature.
naturally are the leaders. Yeah.
Exactly.
But,
Bunch of
but
females
again,
here, the cocks are causing
Yeah.
trouble.
The
But
bitch
again-
is chasing the cock.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Brilliant.
but again, I think, prime example, you're talking about nature there, and maybe I'm an anomaly amongst trans women that I don't think that I particularly fit in anywhere.
Do you know what? You're not an anomaly. All my trans friends, and it's a bit like my gay friends, they don't like activists.
Nope.
One of my trans friends, the one who quite easily transitioned, doesn't even like being referred to as trans. And I had a friend of mine who's a gay cis man, and he said to her once, and I cringed when he said it, he said, "Did you used to be a man?" And her face dropped.
Yeah, because that's
She
one of the most insulting
absolutely
things
cringed.
you can say.
Well, saying that,
In
having
some
said, yeah, but
respects.
having said that, most of my trans friends talk about being trans quite a lot. They're very open about it. But don't forget, I go to places where we're quite inclusive anyway. You don't have to worry about who you're talking to. And most of my trans friends are quite open and like to share their journey of how they transitioned, and they're quite open. But this particular friend I've got, her face dropped. I saw her shake. She went red. She went, "No," like that.
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, I didn't mean to offend you." And he, in his own crass way, said, "But you did used to have a willy, didn't you?" Oh, yeah, but he actually was not.
Not trying to be offensive.
He wasn't
just
trying to be
to-
offensive. He was just being really
But
clumsy.
I think the thing is that some
Put it
people.
into context, we'd all been drinking,
Yeah.
we just met and all this, and he didn't know her, and he's asking me. I was like, don't drag me into this, please. And then she went, "No, I didn't," and she will not admit that she used to be a man at any point in her life.
and I think,
Denial.
In total
Is that
denial
denial?
about
and
it.
I think that's unhealthy in its own right,
Yeah.
because I don't like the referral to my past.
Yeah.
No, I don't think any trans person does,
Yeah.
because it's a reminder of what you've left behind.
Yeah, no, I know.
Like when I hear my old male name, it's almost like somebody just stuck a knife in my
Yeah,
gut.
I know. I mean,
It's not a
yeah.
nice feeling.
You feel like you've gone back to square one all over
so
again.
so suddenly
I know.
you're then trying to justify yourself and your existence to somebody
I
again.
think is it similar to someone saying when you were a teenager you were this and you were that?
No,
I'm
why?
No,
no,
it's
no, it's
not.
not.
No,
Can I
because-
just say, because obviously as a woman, people are going to know I'm a woman, okay? But I do have a disability. And I have a disability in my arm, which I've had since birth, and as a result of medical negligence. And, I don't like people pointing it out. I will never talk about it. I will never discuss it with people. I've known people for 20 odd years and I've never told them. I might have said sometimes, "Can you just carry that glass for me?" or something.
Yeah.
But that's all I will say.
Yeah.
I don't make a big deal out of it because I don't like it, and I don't like drawing attention to it. And when I can see somebody looking at my arm, and then they start asking me pointed questions like, "Oh, can I just ask, what happened to your arm?" Well, immediately I sink. And it's the conversation I have to keep on having over and over
And
and
it's
over
not
and over and
you,
over again.
that's the thing.
It's not me, and I don't like being
It
defined by it.
It doesn't define
No,
you. It
I mean,
doesn't.
I'm
it's
not saying that being trans is like being disabled. I'm
No,
not
no, no.
putting it on the
Because
level
there
of
are similar.
disability.
There are similarities in the fact that there is a definition
Yeah.
that people apply to your disability that they apply the same way to trans people,
Yeah.
as though almost as though it's a disability.
Yeah.
That
Like you're lesser
that
people
you
somehow.
have to then try and define yourself
Yeah.
and justify yourself to be a person.
Yeah.
Because suddenly, the moment you admit it, you're subhuman. And
At best, you're an object of pity and curiosity. At worst, you are a target
Yeah.
for
and it
vile
goes from,
people.
And it goes from disabilities.
Yeah.
It goes from disabilities. It's that
Right.
vile nastiness that goes to.
Well, I had this last
disability.
year with the bloke I told you about
Yeah.
earlier.
So-
I'd slept with this guy on a few occasions, and then one time he noticed my disability, and his face was literally a look of disgust. It was, oh, you got a disabled arm or something.
This just makes.
And then I said, and I went, yeah. And then there was this total silence, and it was so awkward, and I felt terrible. And then I said, and I tried to make a joke out of it. I said, yeah, I got spaz hands. Why is that a problem? And then he turned and then started referring to it as spaz hands. And I said, look, I know I've done that, but you don't have a right to do that.
That's sort of unacceptable.
You know, if you wanted to use a slur, trans slur, that's up to you. I will not repeat it. That's not an invitation for me to do it.
Yeah.
Same with black people. They will use the N-word. It's not an invitation for white people to do it. And it wasn't his invitation. And as usual with white, cis, straight men, they think, well, they shouldn't be restricted in any way or accountable in any way. He was not sorry. I got quite upset. He turned around and totally gaslit me and said it was all me. I'd used the word. He'd done nothing wrong, and I was acting like a psycho. And then refused to take me home until I got really shitty and really did start acting like a psycho.
That's discrimination.
And then the whole time, and then I saw him again. This is, by the way, a guy who's a drug addict, an alcoholic, who's been nearly gone to prison twice in the last year. And this is a bloke going around wearing a tag for assault, and I'm the psycho.
It's arch hypocrisy.
It is, and the thing is, there are very similarities between having a disability and being tagged for that disability and people using that as a slur and a weapon
Not only that,
against you.
You're a woman.
Because
on top of that,
it really devalues you as a person.
I hope most people know.
No, I think, honestly, we're probably talking about a real minority.
A very narrow-minded.
He's the only man who's ever shown any kind of disgust at it.
And this is where I go back to this, where we were at the gender clinic. This thing between not only trans people but cisgendered people, acceptable to ask unacceptable questions. You go, hang on a second, if we were sat in a pub and I was an male female, would you ask me what my maiden name was? No. If I was married? No. You'd never ask these sort of questions.
The thing is, people would lie and say they would when they wouldn't.
And the norm is you don't discuss those sort of things because it's outside of the bounds of normal societal manners to start pushing those boundaries. You get certain people that will always ask awkward questions. But when you come into disability, when you come into trans, people seem to think the boundary is taken away and you can ask whatever the fuck you like with no consequence. And there's probably 2 occasions in my life where I've got really, really pissed off with somebody about asking something that's inappropriate. What gives you the right as a person to ask another person, regardless of whether I'm transgender, whether I'd had a disability?
Because there's an agenda there, that's why.
You're asking these questions to dig, to have an agenda, to then discriminate.
Can I say that I've got a very good example of that? There was a girl at my school, and I'm talking secondary school, so she's not a little kid here. And whenever she spoke to me, it was to ask me about my arm. Even her friends who bullied me picked up on this and felt they had to apologise for her. And it eventually turned from innocent quote unquote questions, to you're a fat disabled cow and you belong in a disabled hospital.
Questions can be
they're seeing you as a
objectification.
thing.
Of course they are.
They are.
And you get back into the feminism argument where you turn around and where men ask specific questions of you. My last experience with the French guy, well, not the last but the previous one, he very charming, very attractive, nice guy, asking me very pointed questions. And you think there's an agenda. Instantly there's an agenda. And there's not necessarily any bigotry there, but there's an agenda.
There is.
There's a misogynistic agenda that is going to come through regardless of whether you answer those questions the way he wants them or not.
It's unconscious bigotry though. They are bigots.
Do we not as human beings all have some sort of agenda though?
Of course we do. Well, to a point.
It
and
depends
I think
if we're in flow states, doesn't it? Like
if I meet someone
to achieve a goal.
Look, if I meet someone and I think they're trans, they're quite obviously trans to me. I don't need to fucking point that out that they're trans. No. Okay, the only reason I'll be pointing that out is because I want to make them feel different, and I want them to feel uncomfortable because I want to feel superior to them. I want to feel like I'm in a position of power over them, and that's the only reason why these people. What other possible reason could they have? Let's cut the bullshit here and stop pretending it's just innocent questions and I'm just curious. Sod off your curiosity.
If somebody came up to you
is
in
not
a bar,
the most important thing in the world.
So you see,
Jules,
do you see curiosity as a threat then?
It's not genuine curiosity.
It's not curiosity.
Because
genuine curiosity is different. But if somebody came up to you in a bar, for instance, you were stood there in a bar with a female friend, and somebody came up to you and pointedly asked you, "Oh, you're a lesbian." there's an agenda.
Because you've got short hair.
Because
You're
maybe you've got short hair.
that's
maybe
so
You used to have short, you used to have
But
short
it's,
I want to
hair.
have my
of course,
hair short.
of course, it's ignorant. Of course, it's ignorant. But there is an agenda behind that question. It's not because they're interested in whether you're a lesbian or not. They go, "You're a lesbian." And you go, "Sorry? Oh, are you a lesbian?"
Okay.
Because why are they asking about you?
I feel there's a lot of emotion going on between. I'm trying to get.
Well, yeah, we are entitled
It's a very emotional subject, Julia. And I think
the way
Don't people ask questions because they're trying to identify something in their brain about what they are witnessing?
But they
well, they don't have to.
there are certain ways of asking questions. There is genuine interest.
Yeah.
And
which I
understanding.
I can understand that though.
So when I met Anne, there was genuine interest and understanding.
Yeah.
Questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Yeah.
It's about
To
being
this day.
respectful.
And but it's how you phrase it, how you deal with it, and whether you're respectful or not. To come up and then say to a trans person, "Oh, you used to be a man," that's not very respectful.
No.
So instantly the person's going to go, "Fuck off," because why would I answer a question about a past life
When
that's
I
got?
used to-
Once I get to know you,
20
maybe I would
years
talk
ago,
about it.
20
But
years ago, I remember going as a teenager to the lesbian and gay, and there were trans women there, and I never went up to. It didn't even
Well,
come into my head.
exactly,
about-
Julia. It wouldn't even occur to you if you were a genuinely honest, nice, decent person who's just curious. The first thing you sit and think is, I'm not going to ask that person that question because it's bloody rude. Okay.
Yeah, I never offended
Only
anyone.
people
I
who
just
don't
said, "Oh,
care-
it was a nice time."
Yeah,
I
but-
didn't think
but only
about
people that have,
anything.
but only people that want that
It
position.
wasn't even on my radar.
But
Yeah,
only
but
people
people-
that want that position of unconscious power or conscious power
Yeah.
over that person ask those ridiculously stupid
Spot on.
questions.
Can I just use as another example? I went on a French Encounters trip when I was 13, and one of the coach drivers, and he was in his 50s, I reckon, and he started talking to me, and I, being a naive 13, 14-year-old, thought I had to talk to him, and now I recognise he was being a dirty old man. Back then I thought he was just talking to me, and then for some reason he said to me halfway through the conversation, "Can I shake your hand?" And I went to go and give him my hand. Now, normally we do shake with the right hand anyway. So he went, "No, your left hand," which is my disabled arm.
Of course.
And it made me die
course.
inside. I was mortified. And the thing is, he would pick on me because I'm young, and we'll go into this with infantilisation and paedophilia and all this, why they pick on young girls. I highly doubt he would have done that to me at my age now.